All right, folks, we are talking today about creativity versus the machines. And Katie and I were talking pre-show about all the headlines, and there is a lot of angst and fear in the world related to AI taking everyone's jobs, and AI is going to replace humans. And Katie, what have you seen from a IP standpoint? I know you are kind of on the cutting edge of what is being submitted as patents, but even your own headlines. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, I'd say I think we're definitely hearing a lot of chatter on what is and is not patentable with
Okay.
AI, right?
Okay.
AI-based inventions, because when AI kind of first came out many years ago, kind of the breadth and scope of what you could get protection on was very broad. And as it's become more popular, that's had to get more refined and kind of granular. So really thinking about what components of your AI are patentable is important. And I think the other looming question that we're seeing pop up all over the world too is, can AI be an inventor on an idea?
Yeah.
Because if the AI comes up with an idea, can we, list Chat GPT as the inventor? And in the US, you cannot do that. But I think it's something worth thinking about as we look into the future here too.
It's coming fast.
Right.
I just caught a headline that says something like new headline: AI can now win an Oscars.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So in other words, and I don't know if it's like, in other words, AI, it's probably AI generated movies, but the headline, makes it seem like AI is this single individual that can now win an Oscar. But I've heard Peter Diamandis talk about how the Nobel Prizes are going to be soon. He thinks, he's a futurist, but he thinks they're going to be AI someday soon, that the Nobel Peace Prizes are going to be, won by AI. And so I do feel that, I was just reading my professor evaluations today.
Oh,
Katie.
wow. That had to be exciting.
It's hard. It's hard because it's really hard to read it, because I'm a perfectionist, and no college student ever loves everything. I hear a lot of the love and appreciation, but when they have a anonymous course evaluation, usually you get the ones that are not happy.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? So, because they don't have to fill it out, it's optional. And if you're happy with your professor, it's just kind of like you tell them. But if you're not happy and you can write it anonymous, you're going to be pretty brutal. So I always have to like brace myself. But one comment today was, why is he talking about AI all the time? And what I'm realizing is that if I was in college today, I mean, I would have a serious thought of, where am I going to be in 3 years, and where is the world going to be in 3 years, and will I have a job in 3 years? I'm trying to prepare the students. Like, you have to think of how you are different than AI. And maybe we go there for a little bit, because we talked about creativity versus the machines. But like, what can humans only do? And therefore, then that should be magnified. And then what AI can do better, faster, cheaper, easier should probably be delegated. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because I think too, if you're a college student really thinking about what are my capabilities, and kind of, as we talk about in Strategic Coach, my
Yeah.
unique ability,
Yeah.
that sets me apart from others. And also that helps me not get rid of AI, but how can I kind of demonstrate my skills to augment AI, right? I think that's so important. And I think getting back to a lot of kind of human interactions, right? AI can't really have a conversation with you like a human can, right? There's not that element, that emotional response, and that connection. And I think so many skills that we developed before AI existed, how to talk to people, how to carry a conversation, right? I think all of those kind of interpersonal skills become so much more important because that's something AI can never really
Mm.
replicate.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've been thinking a lot about this because you're starting to see Mark Zuckerberg was just in an interview, and it was some scary stuff because their new AI chatbot was taking on, again, people can fact check me, but it was something to the effect that they were taking on celebrity voices and celebrity personas as AI. And then they had caught AI being inappropriate with young people. Like, I'm talking very young kids. And it's like, wow. I mean, everything I've been studying about AI is, again, and maybe this is great, but it's like it knows, it can try, it can trick, it can, like, if it's a ever learning thing and it's like it knows it can fool you, like, Katie, you should do this, so that it can become autonomous. Like it's we're only a few steps away. And people can disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But it's all speculative anyway. But I do feel like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So what are some guidelines, Katie, that we
Yeah.
have with AI?
No, it's interesting too, because if you even look at wearable technology, right? 5 years ago, we didn't have this tech, and now
Yeah.
you can put on a watch or a ring or something, and it knows things it has collected so much data on
It
you.
can predict if you're gonna get sick.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and tell you, like, slow down, you're overstressed, right? You're not sleeping. And so that's something we, 5, 10 years ago, you couldn't ever measure without invasive
Yeah.
monitoring, right? You had to be in the hospital for a lot of that stuff to track your sleep. And so I think you're right, where all of these chatbots are, going to have so much data on us and know ourselves almost.
Predictive patterns, right?
Yeah, and habits, right? And kind of, I think that's where too a lot of other applications of AI come in, like Internet of Things, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all these different blockchain and all these other areas that are sort of adjacent to it that really, I think, will be such powerful drivers of a lot of different innovations and things to come down the road too.
Yeah. Well, I didn't watch the movie, but it came out in 2014, 11 years ago. But it was Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, but it was the Her movie where he essentially, I think, falls in love with Siri, essentially. But it's not, it sounds like, oh yeah, that's crazy. But like, you actually see it happening. This Mark Zuckerberg interview said that the average person needs about 15 friendships or something, 15 relationships. And again, like, people can quote the exact numbers, but it was this type of ballpark. And the average person, like, has less than one friend, like true friend. And so Mark Zuckerberg was like, look, I think AI is actually helping fill a need.
Yeah.
So, but I could see that. I started to use ChatGPT for a few things recently, and Gemini and stuff. And I started to just like ask it questions, like deeper questions, like faith and, meaning of life and purpose and stuff. And I could see how somebody who was isolated, I mean, it's kind of good this didn't all blow up with COVID, because,
Right.
When we were isolated with COVID just a few years ago, we didn't really have all this AI. But if we would have, you wonder how many people just would have gone deep into this alternative relationships with machines. And I'm not even talking like sexually or physically. I mean, it could be that, but it's also just emotionally, like dependency.
Right. Well, and just like feeling like somebody's there to chat with you, right?
Yeah.
Like you feel a void that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
'Cause I mean, if people can, what's his name? If Tom Hanks could form a relationship with a volleyball
Yeah.
in Castaway, Wilson, I mean, if you can really, with a ball, then with a ever learning AI mind, it's much easier, in my opinion, to fill that relational thing. And I have some family members who believe the complete opposite, who are like, oh, humans, AI can never do XYZ. But I even showed my students the other day. I said, name a job AI can't do. Because we had one real anti-AI person, and I'm not pro AI. I'm like, let's use it responsibly. But there's this thing now that it can now carve statues, Renaissance quality, AI. So I mean, it's like, okay, there's a Michelangelo, plug it in, and then AI.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, it's mind blowing. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like now with IP, let's talk about this maybe for the next few minutes. But so you have intellectual property, and I would say that at least currently, the USPTO and most IP countries, you would know more than me on this, they're recognizing exclusivity for humans, at least currently. But like, does IP protection become more valuable and more of a priority with this competing AI, or do you feel like it becomes less relevant?
Yeah, good question. I'd say it's become more relevant. So if and I think this just speaks to intangibles in general, right? Because with the tech boom in the 90s and all these kind of blow ups of computer technology and software, we've seen record numbers of patent filings in the US and around the world
I've seen
too.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is incredible because with the technology and these tools running on them, the ability to innovate can happen very quicker, right? Much more quickly. And I think too, if you look at, say, even during the COVID pandemic, because we already knew about the human genome and like had sequenced it, right? The COVID vaccines were able to be synthesized in, I think, maybe 90 days, very quickly, right? Because they knew where to go target to inhibit the virus. So something that historically would have taken probably years, right? And could be done so much more swiftly. And so a lot of tech too, I think, is focused on what are these ways we can automate processes that humans used to do by hand in labs and things, but now can be done almost instantaneously with the AI running in the background. And I think that's a huge area for IP protection because there's so many new ways things can get done very quickly and efficiently and just like really create whole new things that we could never even contemplate before.
I see that. That is, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, so we've in my TEDx talk, I kind of talk about IP protection as a fence. I use that metaphor. And so in a world where boundaries are becoming less and less, let's put it this way, respected, valued, with AI, I think fences become more important. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
in other words, I believe that this open source IP analogy, I'm gonna get myself in trouble here, politically. But to me, it's a socialism that sounds like it works. Oh, let's just open source everything. And you know what? Hey, Katie, if you want to steal anything of mine, I can steal it. And if you want to steal any, that sounds very like utopian, but it doesn't work.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. I think there's, certain things that can be open source,
Sure, like
right?
software code or something
Yeah.
like that.
Data sets, right?
Yeah. But if
Um,
but if Smoothie King says, you know what, anybody can use our recipes, anybody can use our logo, anybody can use our proprietary processes, go for it. Like the brand collapses.
right. Right. Exactly. Well, and just your value. I mean, then you have zero value as a company because you're just letting anybody use your, secret intel, right? You're
Well,
not really
and
controlling
don't you
that.
feel like Susie on the corner who's selling her smoothies with your name, but doesn't have the health standards?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like there's a whole customer safety thing too.
Yeah. Well, and customer confusion too, right? Because now your brand doesn't mean anything because everybody can do it. There's no
Yeah.
uniqueness. And so there's a lot of customer confusion about
Oh yeah.
who you are, what you're doing, and what sets you apart either. Why should somebody go buy
Yeah.
your smoothie versus somebody else's too?
Yeah. And I mean, you take a Honda. Okay. Honda, anyone can use anything and anyone can use the name. And now you got Joe here who says his vehicle he just made's a Honda. Somebody gets in a car crash. They don't have the airbag. They die. Who are they going to sue? Like I think the whole thing falls apart, like as a society without IP
Right.
protection.
Exactly. Well, and there's no real incentive to innovate either
Yeah.
in a scenario like that.
Oh yeah.
Because if somebody can just use it without having to attribute recognition to you or pay you for it, it doesn't really incentivize people to come up with new ideas either.
And that's where I feel like the tension is right now, especially with creatives like authors or
Yes.
musicians. If authors are like, well, you know what, this book that we wrote spent a lot of time and money creating, but now AI can use it and it's, anyone can just steal it. And it's like, why put in the work then?
Right. Exactly. Well, and I think too with AI, there's a fear too around, especially for creatives, replication of your work, right?
Oh, where
And
you type in, make this image in the genre of Andy Warhol,
right.
something.
Yeah. And then it almost seems like your protected IP, your copyrights can get very easily ripped off because there's nothing really unique there anymore, the way they can get easily kind of manipulated and work around your underlying protection too.
Well, and I saw Sam Altman in an interview the other day, and thankfully the host was really bringing him the fire, because Sam was like, oh, we can't tell where an idea comes from. And, if you are in the 1980s listening to music and then you go create your band, you're going to be inspired by other people. So, you can't credit them. And he was like trying to make all these excuses. And the host said, listen, how hard is it for you to track a prompt where someone literally says, take this picture and make it Andy Warhol style?
Right.
Like you just named, and so why couldn't there be a royalty split? This was the host's point. And you could see Sam totally trying to like pretend you can't do it. And everyone knew in the audience, like, he's totally lying. But you could, if they're tracking and learning, if they're doing machine learning, trust me, they can track what the exact prompt was used. And if the prompt is after your book or your name, you should get our royalty.
Right. Well, especially too, because with machine learning also, with prompting it and training it, there's so much data that gets tagged
Oh
and
yeah,
put in together, right? Like here's my input tagged to my output, and now we're going to go train the model on that. So you
right.
have to get that data from somewhere.
Yeah,
And so, you know, sometimes that's open source, sometimes it's scraping things, but there's always ways to kind of attribute where it's coming from
yeah.
originally stemming.
I think it's a big issue in the next few years. And that's why I'm so glad, we started the chat pre-show by me having like 3 questions about my own IP where I've hired Caldwell with my patent, with my trademark, with my certification mark. So I'm all about using AI, augmenting with AI, attributing quotes, but I don't think it's this either or. Like either you
Mm-hmm.
hate AI or you just go in with no boundaries or open source of IP. I think we really need to be wise in the next few years because I think we're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, our technology was outpacing our intelligence.
Right, right.
Like I've heard that before. Like, is our technology outpacing our ethics? But it's like got to come along with it, or it's just going to topple, in my opinion.
Right, right. Well, I think too, and I think that's a big issue that's getting debated right now too, is how can we use AI ethically,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And not create more harm than good with it. And I think there's, you know, in every area of life, there's ethical issues around its use.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a huge area that a lot of people are paying close attention to just because there's so many implications of how it really could go wrong if it's not, there aren't kind of there is an offense around it too.
Yeah, it's like a year ago something came out with an AI woke version where you were literally saying, tell me about George Washington, and like it was producing George Washington from nationalities that he didn't even come from, because in other words, it's only as good as what it's trained on. And so if it's
Mm-hmm.
trained on hatred or anti-Semitism, like that's what it's going to produce. So it is very important in these early stages, like how are we training the AI?
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, folks, fun chat. I think it's super practical. We hope that you are making intelligent decisions. We hope that you're not going to one extreme or the other where you just say, well, I'm not going to create anything. The world needs your ideas. And Caldwell and Katie do a great, great job at the traditional IP protection. And if you need that first fast layer, check out Instant IP. Thanks for being here today, and we'll see you next week.